About your identity. And so today it's a big topic whenever you're talking about identity. You've got identity politics, and this is my identity. My identity is I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a dog, I'm a zer, I'm a zim, I'm a zebra, I'm a walrus. Who knows? Next thing you'll know, they'll start cutting body parts off and saying, no, I'm actually a giraffe. Who knows? We really don't know. Matter of fact, it's probably already being done. We don't really know what's happening, but there's this concept of identity. And the real question is many times we look at the transgender community, and they say that this transgender community, and we say they're not living in reality. Transgender community isn't living in reality. And I find many times that they're not the only ones. We claim titles to ourselves many times that we do not rightfully own. We claim many titles, and you know, I was listening to one person in particular. They were going on their little rant, and it's always fun to listen to their rants. You don't really know where they get what they're coming up with. But the man who was trans woman, he decided he was going to make his little spiel, and he went on his little rant, and he said the patriarchy, the whole reason of gender is patriarchy, so the man can oppress the woman. And that's the reason why they want to be in control. So you subjected yourself and turned into a woman? I am so confused exactly what's happening right now. Why don't you just stay a man and fix it? But I guess he didn't want to do that. And really, they should all just identify as men. If that's the case, that solves all the patriarchy issues. We're all men. All right, there we go. But many times, their identity does not match reality. But we also have the same problem. Many times, our identity does not match reality. So what I decided to do is I'm going to take all of the be ye therefore statements. Be ye therefore statements that are written in the Bible, and I'm going to read off these be ye therefore statements that many times we claim regardless of whether it's reality or not. You know, many people say you can put yourself in the garage, but that doesn't make you a car. You can say you're a Christian, that doesn't make you a Christian. You can say you're a tie, it doesn't make you a tie. You can say also the same thing about attributes in your life. Joshua chapter 23, verse 6a. Joshua said, be ye therefore very courageous, to keep and to do all that is written in the law of Moses. Be very courageous. There was a farmer who had a horse and a goat. One day the horse became ill and called on the veterinarian and said, well, sorry to tell you, your horse has a virus. You must take his medicine for 3 days. I'll come back on the third day, and if he's not better, we're going to have to put him down. Nearby, the goat listened closely to their conversation, and the next day they gave him medicine, and he left. The goat approached the horse and said, be strong, my friend. Get up, or else they're going to put you to sleep forever. The second day, they gave him medicine and left. The goat came back and told the horse, come on, buddy, get up, or else you're going to die. Come on, I'll help you get up. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, and pushed as hard as he could. On the third day, he failed, obviously. They came to give him the medicine, and the vet said, unfortunately, if he doesn't get better, we're going to have to put him down tomorrow. Otherwise, the virus might spread and infect the other horses. After they left, the goat once again approached the horse and said, listen, pal, it's now or never. Get up. Come on. Have courage. Get up. Get up. That's it. Slowly. Great. Come on. And before you knew it, the horse jumped up and it started running around faster. And it seemed like he was in prime shape. It was fantastic. He goes, yes, you did it. You're a champion. Way to go. He was telling his friend horse. And all of a sudden, the owner came back. He saw the horse running in the field, and he began shouting, it's a miracle. The horse is better. It's cured. We must have a grand party. Let's cook the goat. You know, lots of times, you know, people are believe that their ignorance sometimes can be lead to courage. And by ignorance, somehow, even though they're cooking their own goose, they think, oh, well, this is what courage is. And you see these people talking about brave and strong women and strong men, and this is what strong is all about. Their ignorance appears to be courage, but it's just ignorance that they're causing their own doom. No, courage is whenever people that you know personally won't go with the flow that you just said you're going to change in your life. Courage is when you say, I'm going this way regardless of what other people do. I'm making this change. Many people want to be courageous, but they fail the test. And many people say, oh, I'm courageous. That's my identity. Who are you? Well, I'm very courageous. Say that to Joshua. Whenever he stands there and he says, be very courageous to keep the law of God. Think of what Joshua had done to be courageous. He goes out with 12 spies. And each one of these spies, as they all go out, they all collect themselves and they begin conversing one with another. And the spies start talking. And imagine and put yourself in these shoes. And he says, you know what? I think we can take him. And the rest of the spies say, you're insane. You're a lunatic. You're going to cause everybody to die. You're going to have all our people die because of your ignorance. You better not. He says, no, I think we can take him. I think we can take him. Caleb stands up and says, yeah, I think we can take him too. The rest of them hate them. He goes back and decides that Joshua, here he is, he's following Moses. He believes in all the miracles. He believes in God. And what he tells them to do is they stand out. The whole crowd's yelling at them. They hate Joshua and Caleb. God says, I'm going to kill everybody but Joshua and Caleb and their seed. None of these people will see the promised land. You say, well, that was pretty courageous. Peer pressure is really where courage is needed. Peer pressure. But then the second time we really see courage is we see physical courage. And God says he comes up with a sword, and as you know, most people believe this is Christ because an angel lands in front of him with a sword, and many people believe the angel carrying the sword was none other than Christ. And the reason why is he knelt down, and the angel said, take loose your shoes because you're on holy ground. I'll tell you what you're going to do. You see this wall of Jericho with archers and slingers and all these other things on top of the wall? I want you to lead your people around the wall 7 times. First off, talk about peer pressure. That would affect you. Second off, talk about physical pressure. They've heard of all the miracles, and now you have these people walking around your walls. You're mocking them, shooting arrows at them, killing them. Who knows? This is what he wants you to do. This is what it means to be courageous. When Joshua said that, and he said, how can you be courageous to speak about God in a moment of opportunity? You know, many times we think of this, we say, okay, I'm going to be courageous in this moment of opportunity. If I got the chance, this is what I would be. But in reality, you don't live it in your daily life. You won't be it in the big moment. God says he who's faithful over few things is faithful in many things. And many times what we do is we identify as courageous in that opportunity. Well, if I had that opportunity, this is what I would say. But we would never say it in the opportunities we do have. That's called a false identity. There was a man in the Maccabean revolt. His name was Judah Maccabeus. It means Judah the hammer. It's a pretty powerful phrase when you think about it. And Judah, he had come along destroying, he had come along, as you know, and revolted against Rome. But what had happened is you had this man named Antiochus Epiphanes. And this man had come along, and he was prophesied in Daniel as a type of Antichrist who absolutely hated the Jews. And he said, I'm going to Hellenize the Jews, and they're going to worship their God. That's fine, but they're going to worship me. And I'm going to turn everything into these different gods. And before too long, he came down and he said, okay, I'm done with their God. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to destroy their temple, and I'm going to put an altar to Zeus inside their temple. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sacrifice a pig, and I'm going to pour its blood all over that altar there, right inside their temple, and desecrate it. This was not a mistake. This was absolutely not a mistake. And so after he said that he was going to do that, and sure enough, he let it all over, and then he let the blood on the place. He said, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the high priest. And that's what he did. He went to the high priest, and he told the high priest, he said, listen here, I have something I'd like to tell you. What we're going to do, as he was talking to this high priest, he said, what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to take all your people, we're going to make them sacrifice in this temple. And you're going to help us do it. And so this man said, okay, he's going to do it. And they just happened to go to the home of the Maccabees, or of Judah. And they went to this home, and he said, I will never do it. And the Roman guard said, well, we'll slay you where you stand. And he said, so be it, but I will not do it. I will not sacrifice to your gods. A concerned neighbor came up and said, I will offer sacrifice on his behalf. I will offer sacrifice. Later on, this man found out that he was going to offer sacrifice. He was of the same tribe. He found the man as he was going up to the altar. He slew the man and said, you will never offer sacrifice on my behalf to a false god. He then fled, and they began the Maccabean revolt. Now that is courageous. I don't even know that it's right, but it's courageous. That's courage. We want to talk about courage. And that's in the daily life. He didn't get there by being weak throughout the rest of his life. So the first thing is he says, be ye therefore very courageous. So do you identify as courageous? You should, but it's more important to be courageous than to make that identity. The second thing is Matthew 10:16. Jesus Christ, he said, behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and as harmless as doves. Now this is something that many claim that are wise, but many never invest time into researching wisdom. You cannot be wise if you do not invest into the attribute of wisdom. This is very important. So individuals, many times they want people to see their wisdom, but they've never said, you know what, I'm going to study being wise. Does that make sense? So you can say I'm wise, but that doesn't mean that you're wise. You have to invest time. There were 3 men sitting around a fire, and a genie appeared, and he said, I'm going to offer each one of you a wish. He said, I've got 3 choices: infinite beauty, infinite wealth, or infinite wisdom. First man said, well, I'd like infinite beauty. He turned him into the most stunning man you'd ever saw, and they're like, wow, that works. That's amazing. The next guy said, I'd like to have infinite wealth. He snapped his fingers, and sure enough, the entire fire pit was littered with diamonds and gold, and everything around him just seemed to turn into gold. He had a Midas touch. And the third man, he says, well, I'd like infinite wisdom. And immediately snapped his fingers. A slight halo seemed to appear around the man's head. He was so bright and brilliant. And the men looked at him and they responded. They said, wow, well, tell us something wise. He said, I should have chosen the money. Many people believe they have just been given wisdom, as though there's a genie that just all of a sudden, voila, you have wisdom. There's no wisdom genie. Did you know that? The reality is that you have not been given wisdom. How do you know if you are wise? If you have not invested time into wisdom, you have not attained wisdom. And this is a major issue, because when lack of wisdom is combined with pride, it is horrible, horrible situation. It's the situation our country has themselves in. they profess themselves to be wise and they think that they're great, they've never struggled to gain wisdom. And they have pride to boot. And this is what can happen with us. Now he says, be as harmless as doves, and innocent wisdom is what he's referring to. Christ set us out amongst wolves. Now Polycarp mentions a story in the martyrdom of Polycarp. Someone was referencing how there were saints in the early Roman day. And they were really great saints, but they wouldn't just go out and say, hey, I'm a Christian, here I am, do as you wish. It wasn't until far later under Diocletian that happened, and torture was not in the books. So as they were going out and doing this, this letter was writing to Polycarp, and it mentions a certain fellow. And this fellow decided he was going to go out, and he says, as we were taught, as we were not instructed to do, there was a fellow that went out, and he decided he would declare that God, and he was giving a reference. He said, Polycarp isn't like these other individuals. Well, what were these other individuals like? He said, Polycarp didn't go out and declare himself to be of God so that he could be put through the torture, as many have erred from the faith in doing so. And he writes how the ancient martyrs, many of them, they wouldn't try to get caught. They tried not to get caught. They were wise as serpents and harmless as doves. But he said, but this individual, and he said, it's not like this individual who said, here I am, persecute me and try my faith. And then whenever he was persecuted and tortured and tormented, gave up the faith. No, instead he hid himself. He realized he was amongst wolves. God had not taught him that. Showing himself to Rome didn't do anything for him. Yet they thought this was wise because this is what the other serpents did. They didn't invest time into wisdom. Being harmless as a dove is easy to do when you're a fool. But it's difficult when you have the power to cause true harm. Be therefore wise as serpents. And then it says, Luke 6:36, be ye therefore merciful, as your Father also is merciful. Many times we want to identify and say, oh, we're merciful people. But whenever it really comes down to it, you'll find judgment sometimes will creep in the back doors, and somebody will say something, and you'll say, you know what, I'm going to judge them based on intentions that I believe they have. And mercy will fly out the door, and instead judgment will replace that door. Now, it's one thing if somebody is deserving of judgment. There are moments where judgment is deserved. But the comparison that Jesus uses in Luke is really fascinating. Because he says, be ye therefore merciful, even as your Father which art in heaven is merciful. Even as your Father also is merciful. So you want to know what it means to be merciful. How about this? You know the sins that you've committed. And you know the sins that you came to God with. Now imagine it's a relative or a very close friend, or somebody who's done you immense harm. Have they done as much harm to you as you did to God? That is what God said is desired for mercy. That is the requirement to be merciful. How do you identify as merciful? Well, you have to be just as merciful as God is merciful to you. Ephesians 5:1, here's another be ye therefore. Be ye therefore followers of God as dear children. So now what does this mean? Well, if you know the characteristics of the children of God, if you know the characteristics of children, they're very quickly to forget ills that you've done against them. Now, I hold my children to a much higher standard than I myself hold myself to many times. And many people, you know that this is the case. For instance, they have to have a uniform, every day before they go to school. Most of us don't have a school uniform. I don't see anyone wearing a school uniform. We don't have a uniform. And then we expect whenever they get there to sit still and don't talk at all. Yet sometimes we know good and well we're adults, so we have the authority to turn around to our friend and talk in the middle of church and just say something regarding something. I'm not saying that that's wrong one way or another. You don't want your kids to that standard, right? And then many times we'll say, all right, everybody pay close attention and listen and listen. And after we tell them to pay close attention and listen, we say, all right, Tyler gives them a quiz. What if we gave a quiz out every Sunday? That might be actually fun. I don't know. Yeah, that'd be fun for me for sure. I'd have the cheat sheet. What I preach about, I can't remember. No, I wouldn't do that. But what about that? We hold our children to really high standards, extreme standards. And so now let's imagine this, and let's say, be ye therefore followers of God as dear children. So there's lots of ways to be a follower of God. Well, you can be a follower of God like a child and be innocent like a child. I was talking to a man the other day, and I said, there's nobody on the earth that has been as innocent as Jesus Christ. And there's nobody on the earth who has suffered more than Jesus Christ. Nobody. It's impossible. That's what the Bible says, because it says that God didn't alleviate any of his pain. None of it. He felt everything to the highest degree that man can feel. And God let him do that. And so this person argued with me, and they said, well, what about a child? A newborn child. You're saying he was more innocent than the child? I said, yes, he's more innocent than the child. Matter of fact, he's the direct seed of God. He's so innocent. He said, so what about an unborn child in the womb? I said, he was more innocent than a child in the womb. Think of that. Be as the children of God, innocent. Be innocent. Followers of God as dear children. Whenever you think of innocent, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Children. Right? That's what God should think when he thinks about us. The first thing that he thinks about us, as soon as he thinks of the name Austin, the first thing that he should think of is innocent. Innocence. Then Matthew 5:48, it says, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. Now many people frustrate this and they turn it into something that it's not. And perfection, it's important to note exactly what perfection is. The Bible says Job was perfect and he was sinless. It does not mean lack of humanity. We are human, but it also means perfection is perfect. We're perfect as a car that you drive off the lot, or a brand new car that you get that's battery powered, is probably faster than Daniel's pickup truck, is perfect. I wish I would have brought it. Maybe tonight you can bring your pickup truck and we'll have a race. My little battery powered Leaf. And I'll leave you behind and you can look at the leaf on the back of my car and just see how masculine it is. No, I'm just teasing. But the reality is when we think of perfect, we have a specific expectation. You know what a perfect car might be? Whatever suits your purposes, right? You know what a perfect pie is? It's not that every grain of rice is exactly in its place, but it's perfect according to the directions and you like it. And it's not shoe fly pie. I don't like shoe fly pie. Sorry, Dad. It's not that what it is. Instead, it's perfect according to everything it can be. You know what you don't say? Because you don't say, man, I want the perfect car. And then you drive it into a river and you say, I can't believe it doesn't float. It's not the perfect car. Then another thing you don't say is as you're driving the car, you don't say, start flying right off a cliff and all of a sudden you hit the ground and you say, it's not a perfect car. It doesn't fly. But many of us expect perfection to be angelic perfection. That's not what it's talking about. No sin, innocent. Would you say your child is perfect? But no, you would say they're innocent. They're a perfect little child. They're a perfect little angel. But in your mind, in the back of your mind, whenever you see your kid come up to you and they say, I love you, Daddy. Okay, yeah, she's pretty perfect. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you say. She's pretty perfect. But I don't expect her to be an adult. I expect her to be a child. That's my expectation for my child, is a child. And she's a perfect little child. She's fulfilling the role. In Matthew 24:44. Once again, are you perfect? If you say you're perfect, that's not enough. Are you just identifying as it? Matthew 24:44, the last there, therefore be ye also. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Now, I know this was a prophecy, and I've mentioned this and referenced this before, so I'm not going to dive into the prophetical passage here. But what I am going to dive into is, are you ready? Many people say, oh, I'm ready to meet God. And many times you can say whatever you want, but is it true? Your identity doesn't match reality. Because your time comes when you least expect it. Your death comes when you least expect it. Very few are fortunate enough to see their death off in the distance. You know, we talked about Grandpa. Grandpa saw his death off in the distance. Part of the reason why is because he knew. You think of Whit's grandfather. He sees his death off in the distance. He knows it's coming. Why? Because he's ready. Many times this is the way that it works out. Those people that are most ready at any moment, they just seem to live, and they're ready. They see it off in the distance. They know their time is coming. Every now and then it's not that way. I understand it's not foolproof. But whenever you think it's not going to happen, are you ready for the moment when God calls your name to the judgment? So that being said, a short recap. We're talking about identity, what you identify as and what you truly are. Are you as wise as serpents? Or do you just identify as being wise? Have you invested time into it? Are you very courageous? Or have you never really had an opportunity or a need to exhibit courage? Are you merciful? Or do you just identify as merciful? Are you a follower of God as a child? Are you perfect? Are you ready?